Greetings, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today I have for you my April reading stats. So my little summary of how my reading went in April and my best and worst book of the month. Started doing this type of wrap-ups just because it's a bit quicker and easier for me at the end of the month, and then I'm talking more about the books in my recent reads videos. I have another one of those coming for you very soon. I should also say, if I'm looking down, it's because my laptop is on my lap where all my stats are. So let's get into the stats. So I read a total of 6 books in April. I should say finished a total of 6 books in April. I have a number of books that are ongoing, a couple that I finished already in May, but it was quite a slow reading month really, just with everything that's going on in the world and new projects to work on for work. I had a big project ongoing that's now just about finished, so my reading time was a bit squished. I didn't do as much reading as I wanted to, and most of the books I read were quite short because of that as well, at least the ones I finished. So I finished a total of 6 books, 6 different authors. My total page count, comparing this to March, this has really dropped. So my total page count was 1,347 pages, which is about half of what I read in March. My average book length was 224.5 pages. Hello, Editing Kerry. I forgot to say my star ratings for April. So I read 1 book which I gave 2 stars to, 2 books I gave 4 stars to, and 3 books I gave 5 stars to. So even though I didn't read a lot, it was all very good, apart from 1 book, which I finished right at the start of the month. So for the majority of April, I was reading stuff I was really enjoying. And now back to me. The book that took me longest to read took me 17 days, and the book that I read the quickest took me 1 day. So that meant my average reading length was 6 days. So the books I was reading pretty quickly. I was picking up books that I knew I could read quickly because I had a couple of longer ones on my currently reading shelf that I was really struggling to focus on, to get into, so I was just picking up quick books that I knew I'd read quickly. The book that had been on my TBR the longest had been on there for 1,554 days. It was one of the oldest books on my TBR, so it was good to get rid of that one. And that was actually my book Death Row book, and then the book that had been on there the shortest was actually a book that I started reading I think the day I bought it. So the average length they'd been on my TBR was 354 days. Okay, so at the beginning of April there were 557 books on my Goodreads TBR. In April I was gifted a few books, and I also stress bought quite a few books. Although at one point in April I had got that TBR down to 547, by the end of April it has actually now gone up to 564 when I added all those books on. So that is not so good. That is actually higher, I think, than it was at the start of the year. Let me just check. Oh no, it wasn't. It's actually still lower than it was at the start of the year, so that's alright. But my book Death Row has gone up as well. So my book Death Row at the start of April was on 31 books. It is now on 36. Yeah, so both of those have gone up. I didn't read a lot in April though, and I'm now back into a bit more of a rhythm of reading, so hopefully that is going to improve. Part of the reason my book Death Row has gone up and not down is because I didn't actually manage to read the 3 books that I picked out to read in April. I mentioned in my May TBR video, if you watch that I've put them all on my currently reading shelf. Well, I mean, I have now. When I took the snapshot of the stats at the end of the month, they were still on my book Death Row shelf. They're now on my currently reading shelf. I am 5 chapters into one of them. I wanted to give the others a fair chance just because of what my mental state was like last month. They are all books that I'm vaguely interested in, and actually the one that I started reading after the first chapter I thought I'm not going to enjoy this, but I read the second chapter and I am actually enjoying it a lot more than I expected to. I'm going to give them a fair go. They're going to be on my currently reading shelf for this month for May, and if I haven't finished them at the end of May, they are gone. I have picked as well 2 books to read in May from that list too, and I am going to be trying to filter through some more of the lowest rated books on my Goodreads TBR and try and put some more onto that shelf. Back to the stats. Of the books that I read in April, 4 of them were actually on my April TBR, which is pretty good for me. Out of 6 books, that's 2/3 of them. And then the other 2 were on my March TBR. You know what? I'm actually really happy with that. That's all books that I have intended to read within the past 2 months I read in April. So where the books came from, 2 of them were from my own TBR, 2 were new this year, One was a reread and one came from the library. I read 2 hardback books and 4 paperback books. The genres, there was 1 historical fiction, 1 book was kind of a picture book, I'll get to that in a minute. There were 2 fantasy and 2 what I would term classics, and then in terms of the audience, 3 were YA and 3 were adult. The publishers, I didn't actually read any indie books in April, I didn't finish any. Of the books that I finished already in May though, 2 of them already were from indie publishers, and I think at least 4 of the ones on my currently reading shelf are from indies as well. So I mean, that's a bit of a mix. I would have liked to have read some indies, but I didn't manage to finish any. But that's okay because I was already ahead a little bit of schedule for my indie reading anyway. The author nationalities, again, this was not as varied as I would like it to have been. So I read 2 English authors, 2 American authors, 1 Canadian and 1 British American. So he was born in America but became a British citizen by the end of his life. And again, in terms of the genders, I didn't read any marginalised genders. They were all cisgendered people, 4 cis women and 2 cis men. So for my challenges, again, didn't do brilliantly. 2 books counted towards my start on my shelf-a-thon. 1 book was from my book death row and 1 book counted for Read Around the World, which was for Canada. So that wasn't one of the ones that I planned to read for Read Around the World. I am currently reading one of those and one of them I'm rolling over to my May TBR, but one of the other books that I did manage to read, I hadn't realised the author was Canadian and that the book was set in Canada. Yeah, so that counted, which was brilliant really. I didn't finish any series either. In terms of diversity wrap, so for author diversity, this was a bit limited. So I've just got down that 1 author, I believe, is neurodiverse, and 1 author I've got as other diversity, which I can't remember what it is, why I put them down in that category. But never mind. Character diversity I did a little bit better. So I did manage to meet all of the character diversity points I'm looking for in some of the books. So that's Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic, LGBTQIA+, disability rep, mental health rep, neurodiversity rep. Every one of those was covered in at least 1 book. Some books had more than 1. Actually, one of the books covered all of them. Again, not quite as many as I would have liked, particularly on the author diversity. I read a lot of white people, cis white people, Western cis white people. It was all entirely Western cis white people. But hoping to vary that up a little bit more in May. Looking at my May TBR, I think there is a bit of scope for some more diversity there, hopefully. Yeah, so that's all the stats. I'm just quickly going to talk about my least favourite and most favourite books of the month. My least favourite book will be of no surprise to you if you saw my March stats wrap up, because I had a proper rant about this book, even though I actually finished it in April, not in March. And then we also had a mini rant about it as well in my recent reads video that I filmed. I'm not going to go into quite so much detail, but this was The Queen's Sorrow by Suzannah Dunn. This was my first 2-star read of the year. I will link my March stats video so you can get the full rant if you want to. Just to quickly summarise it, so this is historical fiction set in the time of Mary Tudor. The implication from the title and the cover and the blurb is that the book is about Mary Tudor. She is a minor character, but her actions are central to the plot, so a lot of the criticism of this book is that she doesn't feature enough, but to me her rule and reign dictates what happens in the story, so I didn't mind that too much. What I did mind was that the main character, Raphael, is a complete idiot, makes some very questionable decisions, ruins the lives of loads of people around him because of his idiocy, and thinks he's done the right thing, and yeah, it's just an idiot. And also the other thing I really didn't like was like infidelity was very prominent in the storyline. Yeah, I'm not going to say any more about it, just really disliked this book. Was really disappointed as well because I'd read another book by Suzannah Dunn which I'd really enjoyed. This one is being unhauled very soon. But on to more cheerful things. My favourite book of the month. Again, I talked about it in my previous recent reads video, which I will also link for you so you can go and check that out. This is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse. I always think I'm going to get that in the wrong order, by Charlie Mackesy or Mackesy. I'm never quite sure how you pronounce the surname. So this is the picture book that I mentioned. It just has these really gorgeous illustrations. Just really, really beautiful. It's just such a lovely feel-good story. The boy and his best friend the mole go on a journey, and on the journey they meet the fox and the horse. The things they say to each other are so lovely. The mole is just a brilliant, relatable character because he loves cake and I love cake, and so it really related to him. Oh goodness, I'm so sad. This book was just really uplifting and really what I needed to read at the start of April. Really gave me such a boost, and it's a book that I will return to frequently. It's going to have pride of place on my shelf. I just really love it. Let's see if I can find my favourite. I can't remember. I definitely said that there was a picture that was my favourite picture when I did that. I don't know if it was that one, but that is one of my favourites. And I just love the simplicity of the art style and just the uplifting quality of the messages. So if you only ever buy one book on my recommendation, make it this one. It is so worth it. Really love this book. So that is it for my April stats wrap up. Let me know how you got on with reading in April. Have you been a bit slumpy in your reading? I know I have. Just with all the stuff that's going on in the world, it's very hard to focus on things at the moment. So let me know how you've got on with your reading. I think people are going one of two ways. They're either reading loads or hardly reading at all. I certainly was for most of April in the second category of hardly reading at all, but I think I've tipped over now into really wanting to read lots again. So hopefully that will improve my stats for May. We'll have to see at the end of the month how I get on. So let me know some of what you've been reading in April, what has been your favourite book of the month. Have a bit of a chat to me down in the comments. Please like this video if you liked it, and please subscribe if you haven't already. You can also follow me on my social media. I am Kerry Louise Reads on Twitter, now on Instagram as well, and I'm also on Goodreads as Kerry Louise, so go and follow the links in the description to be friends with me on those and find out more about what I'm reading. But that's it for today, so thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye!